Welcome back to One Winning Pod, where we're here to discuss a technical win by the Ravens against the Falcons, the last home game of the preseason stint. They were able to squeak out ahead 13-12, but I say barely because I realized Koo missed 3 field goals, which is more than he missed like most of the year, I feel like. So that was a real bad game for him and basically cost his team the victory in a meaningless matchup.
Yeah, pretty crazy. I mean, I haven't delved into the specifics of it because I'm not a Falcons fan. So, my takeaway is, I guess, that Koo won't. I'll put some thought into what fantasy kicker I'm going to pick for this year, and maybe not pick him. So I can cross him and Butker off the list, and everyone else is still pretty much in play. But
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I will say I think that was cool to see that stop at the end there, though. Big play by Tavius Robinson. We'll get into him and the rest of the guys. I think like the first game, uneven performance. Some guys played really well, other guys not as much. And one thing we can say, though, I think some things are starting to come into focus here as far as some of these guys who's going to be playing and maybe some who aren't as well. Definitely saw some carryover from the first game in this one.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm glad they got the win last week. You guys heard I wanted them to get the win, so they got it. Doesn't matter how, but they did. So yeah, great play, Tavius. And for the rest of the guys, obviously for scoring and getting enough points to win, like good team effort. But yeah, I think I feel like we learned a lot from this game. Just in terms of like. Hey, what position groups, maybe didn't have the quite as good matchups week 1 against the Eagles. They made it look better. Some guys looked a little bit worse. So, we're starting to get a feel for, how good people are going to be. I feel like we should kind of start it off first and talk about the defense, though, because all things considered, like, I think they did pretty good. Take away those couple field goals, like, still, I think they, held the Falcons offense to, a good amount of points and a good amount of yards.
Well, I think the Trent Simpson experience can be over as far as preseason goes. This guy has, I think, solidified his place. He looks very competent. The defense was lights out when he was in, and he's just I don't know. He was involved on so many plays. I'm super stoked about his prospects going into the season, and I'm cool if he doesn't play in the third preseason game. Even with his limited experience, I've seen enough. I'm curious if you guys feel as confident.
Definitely. He's been the standout on the defense for this preseason, maybe the standout on the team. I mean, it's just, he certainly showed flashes his rookie year, but you can see the leap. He, just like in the first preseason game, looks confident out there. It looks like he knows the reads. It looks like he knows where he's supposed to be. There's no hesitation when he's out there. Had a great pass deflection in this game. Had an incredible open field tackle on Heineke when Heineke went and tried to extend the play a bit in the open field. Now, of course, I mean, tackling Heineke in the open field isn't like tackling, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen in the open field, but still, it was an incredible wrap-up tackle. Very fundamental. Yeah, this guy's ready for week 1. He is, I'm fully convinced. I agree with you. I don't want to see him suit up in Green Bay. We don't need to see it. We just need to get him rested and ready for the regular season. He's earned his spot.
Yeah, I mean, think about it too. I mean, we really need to see what these linebackers behind them are going to do. I mean, last year knowing like, okay, we have Rowe, we have Queen, like those guys are obviously playing. Simpson, we knew, hey, we want him. We think he's got a good bit of ability. But behind that, like, they had the depth here, but behind Simpson, still a little bit, not sure. Obviously we brought Ward back, but he's a special teams guy, limited amount of snaps on defense guy. And then, guys like Ross and, Rigby as well. I think I've got to get some snaps on the inside to try and figure out who's going to have that 4th spot on this team.
Yeah, I think that's like the more interesting competition at this point. Rigby did a decent job in this game. I could see him being a practice squad guy, but I don't know if he's done enough to displace Ross at this point. I don't love the inside linebacker position. It last year we had Simpson, so it was like, oh, we have a little bit of depth if anyone goes down for some time. This year, like, there's no like clear Simpson kind of guy providing depth. And I would say my guess is at this point, based on some of what we've seen in the preseason, is that they would actually probably turn to Malik Harrison first, and then lose a little bit of the versatility they have in outside linebacker. But no inside linebackers really earn the job. Maybe it'd be somewhere that they find someone on the streets. Something to keep an eye on. But I don't love any of these backup options at the moment.
Malik was my guess as well. I was thinking the same thing exactly as you're saying that. I think in this game you saw him play a lot inside. I know that they've tried to move him to the edge really, and maybe that is where he is when the games matter for real. But they certainly gave him a lot of run out there at that position. He played well. I mean, it doesn't really show on the stat sheet, only 3 tackles, but he was around the ball a lot. Again, a guy who looked confident, looked like he knew what he was supposed to be out there for, knew his assignments. And we've seen Malik grow as his career's gone on here, right? I mean, he hasn't turned into a star player, but certainly a guy who you're comfortable plugging in there if you have to. Isn't going to really light the place up, but is solid. He's developed into a solid player. So we'll see. I agree that I don't really think a vet signing is really where they're going to go at this point. As we'll get to, the vet signing of an offensive lineman seems a lot more of a higher priority. Maybe you guys disagree. We'll get to that. But Malik seems like it would be there. But, if one of those other guys could develop, that would be great, obviously.
Yeah, it's just a weird year, right? I think it's so crazy how quickly, or actually, I guess another way of putting it, like, it's so crazy how few players it takes to make or break depth, right? I mean, because look at this roster compared to last year. Like, there are a lot of guys still carried over on this roster, but you look at the guys that did leave, guys that were big contributors last year, of like Queen and Stone, and you look at the offensive line and things like that, and like you lose a lot of those snaps for starters, then it can really make a difference in terms of your roster construction. So yeah, I mean this will definitely be a year. I feel like inside linebacker, probably receiver, offensive line. There's probably a couple other position groups as well that like the difference in players between this year and last year is like significant when it comes to having like quality depth. But I feel like that happens though, right? You're just going to have to find new guys, and they're going to have to be put in positions and practice continually. And then, hopefully eventually in a couple of years, like, they'll be solid contributors as well. But, when you have this turnover, like, you're going to have some of these growing pains. So, the Ravens are going to have to pick and choose where they want to put their dollars and hopefully shore up all of them if they can. But, I feel like we've watched enough of the Ravens to know that, like, you can't always shore up all of them. At the end of the season, you're going to know, hey, this position group was pretty bad, even though we tried. And that's how it shakes out.
I do think I was thinking about that today. I think we have a thinner team than last year for sure, and I agree with the same position groups as you. I would go as far as to say I don't think any position group is deeper than last year. Maybe you could say no. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say running back either. I think nothing is deeper. I would say maybe defensive line is like you feel more confident about all the players because you had a breakout and you see maybe more breakouts, so like maybe that feels deeper now. But like they're the same players. It's like, you know what I mean? So
tight end too.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tight end guys is a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But yeah,
any position group you want to say is deeper is deeper because the players have another year of experience on their belts, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And they're not like too far along the age curve where you're like also too concerned.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Although maybe running back, I don't know. I mean, like Henry at least has health. I mean, I know, no disrespect to Gus and to JK and everything, but like, they were having some issues with injuries last year. Well, I guess JK was. Gus was okay, but
so we had a lot of people, drop out of secondary snaps wise, and Obviously they drafted Wiggins, which is a big deal. He didn't really play a part in this game, but he did practice, so that's good. I would say JAD, I think, has won a roster spot. However, I left the game feeling that I hope we don't see him because I don't actually think he's an NFL talent. I think his career is going to dead end. I feel bad talking about him, but like in this way. But I don't see the ball skills to earn him a second contract. However, I do think he's the best available player on our team to like fill in that role. I don't know. Like I just can't. I don't know who's going to try to sign him to like a vet min contract. I don't know. Like I don't know if that team exists. So I'm a little worried about him.
I wouldn't go that strong. The main reason being, it's hard to know what every organization in the NFL would do, right? But I mean, the way I look at it at this stage, I just look at he's shown some improvement. He's looks confident out there as at this stage in his career. They've been playing him a lot more on the outside. Pepe seems to be more they're doing inside with him, and I mean, I've liked what I've seen. I've liked his vision, but I agree with you in that I'm looking at him and I'm not being wowed. I'm looking at it as like, okay, yeah, you look like someone who has been in the NFL for as long as you have, and you know how to play the position at the NFL level. I'm not seeing a Brandon Stevens-esque breakout like we saw last year for Jalen Armour-Davis at this time. I wouldn't say that I'd rule him out. I think that there are things to like. I think he has decent footwork. I think he has shown some good instincts out there. Has been aggressive in coverage at the preseason level, right? So that's the tough part.
Like you're saying. We've seen the most of him ever at this point,
right? Yeah. So I mean, when a guy's doing everything they're supposed to do at the preseason level, that they're the NFL equivalent of, what we're always calling a 4A player when we're talking baseball, right? A guy who's nothing left to prove at AAA, but, you put him in the pros and, he's not able to do the things that he was able to do at that level. So I don't know. I at least where I stand, if he had to play extended snaps this season, I don't think I'd panic yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, don't put him in there as your corner 1 through 3. At 4 or 5, like, okay, that's fine. I think about it too. I mean, put him on the boundary and then put Williams on his side. Like, I think I feel pretty good about that. If, like, Williams has the ball skills to be able to make up even if JAD misses on a play or something like that. Like, I think it'd be fine, but definitely don't put him 1-on-1 on a top guy. Like, it's not going to be a good matchup. So, we'll see what we have. I'm definitely looking forward to Wiggins, and him, getting back healthy and, just seeing him play a lot more. I think I think it will be a lot. It'll be a lot better just in terms of, just getting JD around like the snaps at like CB4, CB5. Like if he's only playing like 10%, 20% of snaps, like I think I'll be fine.
Bump Cooper caught my eye at camp this week. I did get to go to camp, and he had a pretty good game, I think, as well in this matchup. So I don't know how he makes the team in a pretty crowded area. They still have to protect TJ Tampa, but definitely feel like he's going to be a priority practice squad guy, and that excites me. I think he's one of the most exciting out of nowhere players of the camp, and maybe the only one. Because I mean, Braid, he had a solid showing too, but I don't think it's been as significant as Bump, who also, by the way, has a great name.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can comment on that because I'll be honest, I haven't really paid attention to his camp or too much of his snaps in the games so far. But yeah, I mean, I think the name alone is what you give the analysis for, right? You can't be bad if that's your nickname.
I don't even know if it is a nickname. I had to look it up, but
it can't be his name on his birth certificate. It can't be.
I don't know, man. You never know. But it was, I think, what was in the book. So it was like, that's all I saw. We'll have to look into this. I'm very curious now.
That's true.
Let's one of you guys should start off about Adisa Isaac and Ajabo, though. I thought it was exciting to see those guys.
Yeah, I mean,
I was going to add Tavius Robinson into that group too. Tavius, I feel like I watched a good bit of snaps from this game, and by God, like I feel like with behind Simpson, I feel like Robinson you kind of have to put there. I know Alec, you commented just on how different he looks, just like body wise from last year, but yeah, I think he was one of those players. I think you look at the tape against the Falcons and you're like, oh yeah, he definitely stands out, making a lot of plays and run support and beating his guys on the right side. I think he was and playing with a ton of effort as he continues to do. He did a ton of that last year. I think he's a guy who's definitely going to look, really great. Ojabo as well. I think a lot of people were commenting on that spin move that he put on that tackle. He looked pretty good. I think he's a guy that we're all looking forward to seeing more of after we got that little bit of a teaser from his year last year. And Isaac, I'll admit I didn't see a ton of this game. I was only able to watch a little bit, but it was good to see him out there. I'll be honest. The first time I did see him, I was like, oh, I had forgotten that he was a pick from this year, and I feel like I kind of overlooked him a little bit. But he was able to get some game action from the couple plays I did see of him. I thought he did pretty well.
I'll be honest. I was a little underwhelmed with Ojabo. It was, of course, his first game action back from the injury, so that kind of comes with the territory, right? But it just still kind of reminded me a bit of what we saw last year. They put some good stuff out there, and it's like he's almost there, but just not quite quick enough, not quite making the impact plays. We'll see as things go along. Again, it's preseason. I don't like to read too much into it, but we're still waiting to see this guy get out there and be consistent. And I didn't quite see it in this game, but there's plenty more football to play. As long as he stays healthy, I still believe in the potential, and that's been the biggest thing he's had to overcome. I mean, it's not easy to transition to the NFL when you're not on the field, right? So. We'll see. But yeah, Robinson, I definitely agree. I loved what I saw from Robinson against Philadelphia, and it wasn't just that tackle at the end there, but just multiple plays he made throughout the game. He's starting to remind me of another guy who used to play for the Ravens, wore number 95, Jarrett Johnson a bit, just a guy just really fundamental, not the flashiest, but plays like a Raven, like Harbaugh said in an interview this week about him in the press conference. Just has that mentality of what it means to be a Ravens defensive player, does all the dirty things really well. I'm really excited for year 2 for Robinson because, like I said, I really liked what I saw after that first game, that he looked like he was picking up right where he left off, and that continued into this game down to making that quote unquote game-changing play at the end there. So really excited. And it's incredible to see this guy's development. At this time last year, we were talking about how he was looking very, very inconsistent in preseason, not really differentiating himself from the pack. And look at him now. So hopefully when the games start for real again, we see him continuing to make strides, because yeah, he's reminding me of Jarrett Johnson. I'm telling you, I'm calling it now.
One thing I'll say about Ojabo is that I really like seeing the bend that he had and the confidence he showed in those ligaments that have been ailing him and the reason he's been out. So I thought that was good. I like the spin move that he did, good rip with the hands. And I also thought he did a better job edge setting than we've ever seen out of him. And then Isaac, kind of one more with bull rush. Had some pressures as well, and overall, played well until he cramped up, and then Tavius came in, like you mentioned, and sealed the deal. Grinder, as the coaches have been saying about him, and all that good stuff. So, I think it's a arrow up for all the young outside linebackers on the team, which is good when you lose a guy like Clowney. Like, we're looking for people to step up. We already expect the 08 breakout and him to step up in the stat sheet, but a little juice from some of these other younger guys too will also help. And I guess that's basically all I had for defense. I will mention that Pepe feels a little bit more on the bubble than ever with how well Ardarius Washington's playing, and Bump and everything. Who apparently maybe might be Ryan, but Jerry's still out. Jerry's still out. So I guess we can move on to the offense.
I mean, I guess we can. The one comment I'll put in all that is I think another week, just, crickets, anyone talking about, the defensive line play as far as anyone outside, Travis Jones, Brent Urban, the guys that we know are going to be starters when the games count. You're really not hearing any of these guys who are brought in, the young undrafted guys, the journeyman veterans really making an impact to really, be noticed at all. So that I think is slightly concerning, just because not for this year, but maybe for, like we were saying before preseason started, you're relying on a lot of older guys, and it'd be nice to see someone step in and say like, okay, well, when Michael Pierce isn't here, when Urban isn't here, we know who's going to be backing up Jones and Washington and Matabike. But yeah, I mean, outside of that though, yeah, I think we've hit everything on the defense.
From an offense perspective, we gotta start with the offensive line. It's what everyone cares about. And friend of the show, Jason from Huddle Up Films, posted a video where he circled Voorhees. This is a great video because not only did he circle Voorhees, but if you use your eyes and divert them to the right, you can watch Rosengarten for all his plays. You can watch a little bit of Cleveland if you're so inclined. So I watched that video twice just to watch each guy, up close and personal. And I guess we'll start with Voorhees. My comment was eek. I am very concerned about him. His pad level is too high. Like, he just isn't like... He isn't getting in the right position to block effectively in pass sets. His run sets are a little bit better, but like I also don't think those are particularly great. For everything that's talked about with Voorhees' bench press strength, I am convinced that Cleveland is like more like total strength and like grown man strength and able to like torque his body. Like when Cleveland gets stood up, you can see him like recover and his arch. And Voorhees, I have not seen that. So, yeah, I'm concerned about Voorhees at this point, and I do not see a better option. So that is concerning.
Well, there has to be a better option, as far as a camp cut or something, because I think that he lost his chance to be a starter, at least coming out of the gate after this game. I mean, there's no way that what happened on that sack can be allowed for a guy who's going to be a full-time starter on a team with Super Bowl aspirations, And if that was the only snap that was bad, you could be like, okay, fine, Even Kevin Zeitler when he was here, even Marshall Yanda, even though that was very rare, would have, would get beat, would have a misstep. But yeah, what was even more concerning to me was it was a worse performance than the previous week.
Yes.
I don't think his performance was great against Philadelphia, but I also don't think it was bad. There were certainly some snaps where, he got pushed back or, wasn't able to make his block in the run game, but it was solid in my opinion. But this one just, especially with looking at that cut up, I watched that same cut up that you did, and I agree Jason did a great job with that. Just seeing it play after play, it was like there were some good plays in there, but a lot that showed a lot that needed to be worked on.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely rough. I feel like the Linderbaum injury, him getting healthy, I think is really key. Because if I'm looking at the players right now that we are considering starting, and we're just trying to figure out like who slots in where. I mean, we've got Voorhees right now. His stock is down. I agree. Cleveland, I think as a group, we're a little bit mixed on. I think Alec, you're a little bit higher on him than maybe I am. I feel like because of Voorhees' struggles, Cleveland's got to slot in somewhere. And then you have McCary and then you have Falele, really to kind of like round out your three interior spots, assuming Linderbaum is not healthy. So, if he is healthy, then obviously you just have to pull up the guard spots, and then you can pick whoever you want to pick your favorites for the two spots. But certainly, if Linderbaum takes a couple more weeks, that interior is starting to look very, very scary. Even when the tackles aren't really a done deal either. I mean, you've got Stanley, and then maybe Rosengarten. So yeah, yikes. Just in terms of the whole offensive line right now, there's definitely a lot of question marks.
Yeah, I watched Rosengarten's tape, and I think it was worse. Like, everyone's been praising Rosengarten this week. I thought it was worse than last week's tape. But it wasn't bad, I guess. So we'll see how this progresses. But I left feeling that Rosengarten still should be our starter. I think there's still growing pains there. And I was hoping to see a little bit of an ascendancy in this play, but didn't quite get that.
Fascinating. What didn't you like? Because I've thought that it was right in line and actually maybe a little bit better than what he did against Philadelphia.
Sure. Yeah, I think my biggest concern was that he was getting a little bit. Might not be all his problem. He was getting a little I think he was having trouble in the run game, but I'll talk about Falele later. I thought that he was having trouble getting to some of his blocks and getting to assignments. I think his pass sets were fine. There were a couple times that he kind of died slowly. That's okay. But yeah, I think it was mostly the run game stuff that I was more concerned about.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see that. I do think that pass protection, he is stronger there at the moment. I think his run blocking's been pretty decent so far as well. But yeah, I understand that take. I mean, with that said, though, I do think we should point out that there have been some run blocking sets, reps he's had where he's just been absolutely spectacular and has been, pushing his guy back and building the pretty big hole as well. So he certainly has the skill set to do it, but like any rookie, consistency.
Yeah. I'm just tired of Falele, man. I can't. I have to vent twice. I already vented once today, and I'm gonna vent twice because I'm tired of being gaslit into that he's our right guard. He's so bad. He can't move, and I'm convinced he's a better tackle than guard because at least at tackle they have to go around him, but at guard. He's kind of in a little space, and he's not even he's not physical. The guy is so darn big, but he doesn't attack, and he's not ferocious. He's not violent. He drives me nuts watching him. He's just, I don't even know. I feel my Chris's feelings about Cleveland and not knowing where he fits in, or my feelings about Falele. I don't know what you do with this guy. I think he's just kind of a bust. And it drives me nuts because I thought that he had a chance of maybe developing into a right tackle, and then I feel he's not good at guard. I feel he's actively worse, and yeah, I don't know what to do with this guy. He can't pull, he can't do anything, man. It makes me so sad. And I just I really hope that they don't actually want him to be the right guard at this point, because I would be really second guessing that decision making. And what the heck did Cleveland do to get this low on the totem pole? Because I mean, yeah, he had that one snap situation, but good news is that right guards don't have to snap. So I just and also I think his snaps are good. I think other than that, the snap that was too early or whatever, I think his snaps are actually pretty good snaps. I take him over. Who was the guy before Linderbaum? That was it, McCary?
It was McCary.
Yeah. I'll take it over
McCary, yeah.
McCary snaps. I would. I think they're nice and tight and on the money. But anyways.
Where do we think they're going to slot McCary? Because McCary has to be a starter on this line, right? I mean,
he was the one I forgot. Yeah.
We're looking at everything that's there right now, and whether you love or hate McCary, and I know there's a range of opinions on him within the fan base. You at least know what you have, right? And the rest of these guys are question marks. Where I don't know. Do they slot him in at left guard? Because I mean, Voorhees doesn't look great. I know that's probably not where they want to play him. They probably want to play him at right tackle. But like we're saying, Rosengarten looks, as a rookie, ahead of these other guys. So I don't know. That's going to be a really interesting one to look at.
There's something to be said.
And I don't
about
have the
Jones.
answer. I don't know what they're thinking.
I mean, I didn't watch Jones too closely in this game. He graded decent, and I would say maybe you have some tackle versatility with him, and then you're like not as keen. But McCary's better, I would say, than Jones at that point. I mean, maybe they move Jones in to guard, but they haven't shown that in the preseason. I honestly think that it's going to be Voorhees. Like, unless they find someone, I think they're going to roll with Voorhees and they're going to like figure it out. Unless it gets like horrible. I
just don't see how they can do that right now. And I'm not giving up on Voorhees. I still think that there's been things to like, but I mean, if he looked like that, I mean, John Simpson from last year is a perfect example. He looked great in the preseason last year, kind of like Jalen Armour-Davis has right now. If Voorhees is looking like that in the preseason, how is he going to fare against Kansas City's defensive line? How is he going to do against Trey Hendrickson? You know, I mean, it's like,
I hear you.
I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm not saying I'm giving up on the guy. I'm just saying with these first two performances, it hasn't looked like the guy that we thought was a steal yet.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if there's any benefit now of running with a bunch of young guys and a bunch of vets that are basically unproven for any of the spots, you get a lot of handshake agreements for that. Or you get the option of wanting to get someone else from another team, you know, on waivers and stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, all things like, obviously this is not the best outcome, right? The best outcome that you have is, you know, who are going to be in like at least 4 spots.
Right.
But, you know, in terms of like the roster construction, like, yeah, I mean, if you like, for example, like if you didn't think Jones was the guy, but, you know, put him on waivers and then reevaluate your options, like, okay, I guess that's all right. I don't know. I feel like it could be worse.
Yeah, I mean,
I do agree. Voorhees by default, like, you want to have another option there. And I guess Cleveland has done left guard. But I mean, again, like right now he's slotting into like, you know, potentially starting at right. So, you know, you don't really want to move him around. You don't want to move Lele around.
No, he could.
So yeah,
he's the only right guard.
And I don't think we talked about it on the pod. We've not talked about it. No one saw Falele at guard coming, right? Like that came out of left field to me.
They've been talking about it. I mean, yeah, they tried him out last year in camp there. Like,
I missed that, I guess.
Yeah, no, they've been flirting with this for a while, and I thought they figured out last camp that he couldn't do it, and I don't know why they went back to the well, but here we are. Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? He's just too big. Like, it doesn't work. I don't know. It's a mess. I guess
the worst part is that Dallas Andrus is now on his leave of absence, so that does not help.
I agree. The only silver lining I can possibly pull from this is if like Joe D was in charge of making the starting 5 and he had a connection with Cleveland, that he's now out of the picture. That's the only silver lining. But if it's a hardball thing, then oh man, yeah, I don't know. Who knows? I just don't know what to do at this point. I think I agree that with you, Chris, that they're going to be looking at the waiver wire for it, but I do think like the 9 that they keep on the roster are fairly clear. So it's just a matter of seeing how it plays out. They did try Saleh at tackle and guard during the preseason. He seemed like Saleh. Which, I mean, given the level of competition it was against, was actually better than Voorhees, but like, I imagine Voorhees would have done better in that level of competition too. So, yeah.
Moving on, there were other positions who played on offense in this game. Nothing, I would say, that had as much of an impact on what we would see as far as the starters are concerned going into season. But I do want to talk a little bit about a guy who splashed a bit and had a really big touchdown. Dayton Wade, he had some catches against Philadelphia and had the big play in this game, as well as another catch for 11 yards, 2 catches on 4 targets. Chris mentioned it when we were talking about it in the preseason preview. There was going to be someone, we weren't sure who was going to, be the preseason star and who no one was really talking about. So far, Wade might be that guy. I mean, he's having the preseason that, honestly, I mean, if Walker was having this preseason, I mean, we'd be really excited, right? And be talking about how he's going to fit his way in this offense this year. Wade, as an undersized, undrafted guy, this probably isn't doing anything for him as far as, making a push for the active roster, but it's still been exciting to watch his play over these first 2 games, particularly with, not too many guys making consistent plays.
Sure. I think I would say if we didn't already invest in Hardy, I could see Dane Wade certainly making the roster because he also has shown return possibilities. I feel like the investment in Hardy, like I don't know if they're going to look at it with the sunk cost fallacy or not. I'm not convinced that he's maybe the best option for us long term. I would like to be proven wrong on that. I think at the same time, though, guys like Wade and Kirkwood would probably sneak onto the practice squad just fine. So, like, we don't need to particularly risk it with Hardy. But I do think Wade has shown enough to be a guy on the practice squad. I'm just not convinced, like, he would... The Ravens have not done enough to convince me that anybody wide receiver 4 or onward might particularly matter, like, in the actual offense and, like, actually get snaps or actually get play. And I think those first 4 are pretty clear at this point. So, yeah. I also have liked Kirkwood, and he offers a different body type that the Ravens are lacking. So I think he's a practice squad guy, but Tylan Wallace feels like the biggest news almost in the wide receiver camp because it felt good about him keeping a roster spot. It seems super confident now, and I would put him as wide receiver 4 now before Tez Walker for sure. And I'd also just point out that he got a lot of action when I was at camp, and he looked good. Like, it seems like something's going on with Wallace. Watch the space. Legitimately could see him be like slot receiver this year and like splitting with Aguilar more than you would think.
Moving back to Hardy, though, I'm a little. I didn't quite follow your comment with the quote unquote commitment they've given to. I mean, he only signed a 1-year contract, right? I mean,
yeah, but it's more than the vet minimum, and they would lose. Okay. They'd lose some cap, but sunk cost. It already happened, right? So like it. They probably keep him around and play the game with Wade and Kirkwood and most likely win. Like, frankly, like, it's really uncommon for these kind of guys to get picked up in wide receiver pools. It's like everyone loves their wide receivers. I don't know. I would be surprised, but
I don't think Keith Kirkwood's making the team.
Oh, I don't think so either.
No. He meant like put him on the practice squad and see if anybody else picks him up. That's what he meant.
You think he's making the practice squad?
Kirkwood? Yeah, I do.
He's old. He's 29.
So what?
Go on there now.
Yeah, you can have olds on the practice squad now.
Yeah, well, I guess my point is like I never even understood why. I thought he was always just here as a camp body because I mean he's been in the NFL 6 years and hasn't done anything, right? I mean,
I guess like who would you want to have on the practice squad over him?
Someone who could develop into something.
Okay. Fair enough.
But who is that?
Yeah, but who? I mean, I don't know, man. I'd rather try to reclaim Kirkwood than I don't know, one of these other guys. I get what you're saying. I just don't know who it would be. Is all I'm saying.
I mean, we've got Wade. We talked about.
Got Miller. I guess
Malik Miller's Cunningham's looked okay.
That's true.
Certainly something that could be worked with there. I mean, even Anthony Miller is younger, right? So, I mean. No, I know he's the same age. Never mind. Wow, really?
I feel like Miller, okay. Depending on what he does in the third game, I feel like he has the shot to be like the 6th spot. on the roster though. Like I definitely don't think the Ravens are going to pick or going to put 7 receivers on this roster, but like 6, I think that could probably happen. But he seemed like a guy that they were targeting a good bit this game now that he was in.
Yeah, he looked good.
Well, he's at least had solid production. I mean, it's been since 2020, but he's has 3 seasons that he's logged in the league where he's had at least 33 receptions, at least 400 yards receiving. Gosh, he had 7 touchdowns as a rookie, 656 yards in his second season. And these are in Mitch Trubisky offenses. Like, I mean, that production in that putrid of an offense isn't actually, something to just, completely overlook. But again, it's been a while, right? He hasn't played in the NFL since 21, where he bounced around Houston and Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, looking at his past production, yeah, I'd still take him over Kirkwood.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. So you had Josh Johnson go for a perfect score, right? Like 11-11. And then they had Emory Jones come in first, then Leary, and then they kind of swapped them both back and forth. I have not seen enough out of Leary to keep him over Emory Jones. I understand he was a draft pick. I understand he's like T. Martin's guy. But yeah, like, I don't know. I'm curious if you guys have a similar feeling or not. I don't expect them to keep Emory Jones over Leary. I'm just saying I think it should be considered higher than, like, I just want to bring it to light, I guess, because I just haven't seen enough out of Leary yet.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is a weird position group. Just knowing that, like, you got to have a backup to Lamar. So Johnson's the guy, but he's not a guy that you feel super comfortable about playing for, honestly, more than like 2 games at a time. Like if he's playing any more than that, like, we're in deep trouble. But yeah, any of the guys behind them, like, I don't think either of them are going to be close to playing any backup snaps this season. Like if we were in that situation, we would definitely 100% be done. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like who to keep on the practice squad, like, honestly, it's probably a coin flip. Like if the coaches want to keep working with Leary, they can. But there's absolutely no way that there is an intentional path to having either of these guys on the roster.
I wouldn't be surprised if the third quarterback makes it just because they did it last year. But I guess, yeah, we'll see, because these are definitely not as good as Jones, or as good as Josh Johnson were. For
sure. Yeah. No, I mean, even, Huntley, I know, is not having like a ton of success with like Cleveland and everything, but like, I mean, he was honestly your ideal backup, right? Plenty of teams are like, yeah, like would want him in that position behind Lamar. And then we have Johnson as your third. You're like, okay, this is a pretty strong group for, as strong as you can be at the backup quarterback position. But yeah, I definitely I agree. I don't see anybody right now that's like close to Johnson. So it's a little scary.
It was good to see Johnson have a good game. It was kind of surprising because we know that he's a solid vet. We know that he should have no problem in the preseason. So to see him have such a low completion percentage against Philadelphia was slightly concerning. He's getting up there in age. It's possible that he could have fallen off. It's still possible he has, but the performance this past week was much more encouraging. To show that, yeah, he's up there. He's in his mid to late 30s, but he's still able to play the position at the NFL level. Yeah, as for the backups, I mean, look, the Leary pick was one that we were a bit confused on. I think a lot of the fan base was confused on when that happened. And yeah, he has not looked good in his first couple preseason games. Jones seems to maybe have a bit more tools than he does. I mean, he is a guy right now who's locking in on his first read and just not really scanning the field. But I mean, a lot of rookies are like that, particularly ones who need to develop or undrafted like he is. I mean, yeah, I think if you're asking me to pick right now, and throw the draft capital out the window, I'm saying, yeah, I mean, Jones would be my pick over Leary, but at the same time, both these players are young, and so it's kind of a small sample size you're working with, but Jones is making bigger plays and seems to have better tools as well. So that's my pick right now.
Yeah, who knows what they're doing in practice? I imagine that almost matters more at this point than preseason games. But yeah, I guess to round out, like talk about tight ends and running backs. I felt like the running back situation was like there was nothing really gained this game. I feel like they were running into kind of brick walls most of the time. Owen Wright did not make, in my opinion, like much more of a case. Even though I think like no one moved, so Owen Wright's still like in pole position, I guess. But yeah, no one moved, and then Ismail, he got some targets, and I just hope that we don't lose him. I hope they mix the practice squad, and I hope that we're able to develop him because I like him a lot. I'm still like completely in on this train. Like he's upsetting like all the outside linebackers at camp for being like so physical and blocking. I think that's great. Like the guy's working his butt off to get the roster spot.
I mean, he looks to me like a guy who someone will give a chance on their practice squad if he doesn't make here, right? I mean, he's got that big body, he's got that effort, like you're saying. So featuring the tight end in a receiving role doesn't seem to be something that they're trying to do here in the preseason. So we're not really seeing too much there. Blocking is okay from what I saw, but yeah, I mean, certainly a guy who's continuing to look intriguing. Running backs is incomplete. I mean, we talk so much about individuals in the offensive line portion. We forgot to go through the fact that this group did not create any holes for these running backs to run through. There was just, it feels kind of unfair to say that Owen Wright had a down performance from the week before because there was just nowhere for him to run.
Yeah.
He did get that touchdown, which was good. So that's always good to have on the tape there for him. But yeah, I mean, I think my take on him is just the same as it was last week. When he was out there, it looked like he was doing the right things, running the right routes when he was out there in the passing game. So we'll see. I think you put him behind a line that can then block, he still would have had a decent game.
You're both very weird position groups. Just, I mean, think about it. Actually, both of them, the top three players in both those position groups basically didn't play that much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, you're both like, you got to temper expectations and that the players that you're going to see are going to be, fourth string at best for their groups. And so, you kind of got to downsample, I think, a little bit based on that. So I agree. Wright seems like the guy right now that, will be here until Mitchell gets back whenever he does get back. And tight end, like Ismail, like hopefully he can make the practice squad. We'd love to keep him around for a bit. But right now we know the three we're going to get, and they're going to be tons of snaps between those guys. So it's unfortunate, he's not going to get the playing time right now with us, but, hopefully he'll want to stick around.
If we can trade Kohler for like a speculative 6, I would do it. For sure.
I don't feel that good about Ishmael yet.
I'm not saying I even feel that good about him. I'm just saying let's get something out of Kohler, right? Like I would say just I would get a pick out of Kohler if I could, because I feel good enough about if we had to get there. Because I don't think he would play, right? I think Kohler is a fourth round guy I think he's fourth on the depth chart because Ricard would take all Kohler snaps.
Right, but let's talk about a case where you have a guy who's getting older who gets nicked up almost every season in Mark Andrews. So I feel like they would still want to run a lot of sets where you're running two tight ends out there to fully take advantage of, the versatility of Likely, like still be able to have him be moved around as that chess piece as they're describing. I think if Likely in that case has to step into the Mark Andrews role, you're limiting some of the versatility that you were able to unlock with having someone play the more traditional tight end. Not that Mark Andrews doesn't really play the traditional tight end role either, right? But in that case, I think they still need Kolar on the team as a backup plan for if Mark Andrews, gets a bit dinged up and has to miss some games this year.
It's probably the way to go. Yeah, like we talked about it, like there's a lot of groups in here which are a lot weaker than they were in the years past. So, it's definitely not going to help whether no matter how close Ismail is to playing whatever, amount of snaps he need to play to be in like Kolar's position. The pick that you would get for that is not a benefit for this year. It's definitely like, does it get you closer to where you want to be next year? It's an interesting hypothetical. I feel like, Alec, to your point, like I feel like I would consider it. Just knowing that, like, okay, we're already really deep here, and we've got a guy that we, as far as we know, like the Ravens seem to like. So, I would entertain the option, but it would definitely not be my first choice.
I guess we'll see. I do think, despite everything we said today about how this team's thinner, I think that their options at the margins might be good enough to garner a trade. So, like, it wouldn't shock me if somebody is traded for a hypothetical pick swap or something of that nature. Watch the space. Anything else we want to talk about?
I think we hit all of it. I guess the last would be, what are some things we want to see in this final tune-up, this final preseason game? And I think some of them we've already hit. Certain players who have dominated this preseason just sit on the sideline, and others we want to see some hope, some bounce back from this game. And which those players are, I think, should be pretty obvious from what we've talked about.
I mean, heck, man, if the Broncos put up 20-some on the Packers and they only scored 2 points, let's go for a shutout. I know we've been looking for one of those for a while.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, in all seriousness, no. It would be good to see. It would be good to try and see, any of these position groups that we talked about, of being an area of concern right now. If we can see anybody that has being able to trend up in this last game, or somebody that to be able to separate where they haven't been separated before. So, offensive line, a bounce back game for Voorhees would be pretty nice. Any of the other options, Falele, Jones, Cleveland, any of those other guys, like if they can trend up, that'd be good. And I think, for some of the offensive, offensive position groups too, like we just talked about, receiver would be nice. And, defense on that side as well, like at the corners, I feel like is one where we could see some of these guys try to separate, and defensive line, like you mentioned. So, that would be the thing that I would look for aside from a win, just to see who can separate out.
Agreed. I think a little bit more clarity in the wide receiver space, if we're talking about these practice squad guys, edge of the roster guys, would be good. And offensive line is everything. I want to see all those guys bounce back, like we mentioned. Maybe see a defensive lineman in their keep for the practice squad. And, just like the final shakeout of the secondary. I think Pepe is very much on the bubble. So let's see how it all plays out. Like, that's going to be super interesting. That's where everyone's going to get their roster protections wrong, by the way. it's gonna be in the secondary, because I don't think it's going to be a super obvious situation. But yeah, with that, we'll wrap up. Thanks for listening to the show, and feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at OneWinningPod, Threads at OneWinningPod, not Mastodon or Blue Sky. But if you're on there and really want to see us, you can do it. And then, you can email us onewinningpod@gmail.com. We'll be back after a game against Green Bay, who we're hoping to shut out and have awesome offensive line play. With that, go Ravens.